But as we get into the full contents of the inside here, this is chock full of a number of different goodies, but things that for me are more common. So you'll see all of this stuff should come into play pretty much on a regular basis for general sort of medical purposes, for general sort of camp comforts, and finally for the ability for me to start my fire. So the most important thing with a kit like this is the ability for everything to fit nicely together. And that's what you get with these FTIM organizers. Now there are a number of different sizes. I found that the 6x9 is perfect for my needs, where it's not too big, not too small, and I actually really like the elastics. So that's one of the things that caught my attention. My ability to really put some of the most common used things on the outside flap here. And that to me is stuff that I need to get to reasonably regularly. So what you'll notice is that right now this is set up in these little vials. Now these vials are actually watertight and they are plastic test tubes. So I got vials that I knew would fit perfectly inside this organizer, and so by doing that I have a number of different things that I've been able to take out of their regular containers, and I just need to keep these vials full. So a perfect example, like right here, this first vial, this is hand sanitizer. But how much hand sanitizer do you really need for one camping trip? You don't need a ton. So to me, it's foolish to bring a huge vat of this stuff when all you need is a modest amount. Now, I can keep this full. Before I leave, I fill this up. So this now can live in here, but I know to keep this full. I don't need to guess about how much is in one of my containers, how much is in that, I don't know. Well, every time I go, I can fill this up, have a set volume, and refill this, which is very nice. Chapstick is something that is pretty straightforward. Now, when I get into the camping application, I do like to have something with sunscreen in it. So if I'm in a really sunny spot, having this lip balm with sunscreen can definitely help. And speaking of sunscreen, here you'll see, again, I don't need a big crazy tube of sunscreen, just enough to keep me safe, to keep me from having crispy skin and getting all kinds of fried. So to have just enough sunscreen in here is definitely a plus. But you may be saying, well, how are you going to get it out of there? First, I'll do my best to just dump it on my hands, but if I need to, that's why I have an array of cotton swabs. These are long enough that I can use these and dig into any one of these and pull out the amount that I need, apply it to my skin, and then just get rid of the cotton swab, or even stuff the cotton swab back in here if I had to. So this to me is an easy way to deal with some of these materials. So if I needed more hand sanitizer and I could get down to the bottom and kind of dig it out, no big deal. If I needed some of the sunscreen, get down there, dig it out, no big deal. So that was the mentality behind it. Now beyond that, these cotton swabs actually came from a sterile container. So in essence, these, although probably aren't considered to be sterile right now because I removed them from the package, they are very, very clean. So the fact that they're in these test tubes and it's watertight, these are not contaminated. I could potentially use these if I had to help put ointment on a cut or something like that. So definitely a multi-use and multi-purpose little tool in this test tube. Now getting down into some of this, funny little things that you may not think about. But for example, what about cleaning your dishes? So I have some biodegradable soap here. Now I try to go very, very light when washing dishes in nature. I do try to minimize the overall amount of soap. I don't like getting a ton of soap into streams and ponds and things like that. However, I do clean my pots. I do like to keep my gear clean, and I don't like greasy stuff in my backpack trashing the rest of my gear. So when I get a chance to wash my pots, I definitely do. So here, having just enough soap to do what I need to, again with the mentality being, if I leave for a trip, I can just fill this up and I know how much I have. I can actually monitor how much I use in a given trip with this stuff because it is graduated. So you'll see here 10 milliliters, 1 through 10 all the way up. So by the end of my trip, I kind of know and get a sense for how much of each one of these materials I use. Now this is a little bit of a funny one, but it kind of makes sense. Here I have some ground espresso. So let's just talk it through. I mean, I generally bring coffee with me, and it's always instant coffee. And you know what? Sometimes I just want a little extra kick. So to have some ground espresso, very easy, not a big deal. I could actually make an entire cup of espresso if I wanted to. But to have this in here, just that little extra shot of caffeine if I need it, is definitely cool, and I enjoy it. Now I thought keeping my pills in here might be a good option. So just some ibuprofen. Now should I have a couple of different medications? Probably. This is just a concept right now. So I'm trying this for the first time to see if it works, and I think this is definitely a viable option. So again, the idea that I can see through this easily. I know how many I have. If I need to fill this up before I leave, it's very easy, and I can just keep this nice, easy, modest amount at all times. And same with matches. I don't always need a ton of matches, just a few. So these weatherproof strike anywhere matches are definitely awesome. And these fit perfectly in one of these little tubes. So again, being water resistant, this to me is a better option than some of the other match cases out there. The reality is the other match cases are very, very large. They actually are much larger than I need them to. And one of the things I'm going to do is super glue on the outside of this a nice large piece of sandpaper to make this a striker. And that is just the next thing I need to do. Now I have my super glue and I have my sandpaper, just a matter of finishing off this little project and making a striker on the outside of this vial. Now these last two tubes are very important and I think could be critical if you really need them. These are a couple of little tubes of Quick Clot. Now I didn't want to remove the actual powder. I wanted to keep it in here nice and safe, but these are just slid down in the inside. Not too big of a deal. I can pull the cover off and get to these very easily without any difficulty, but to have two of these is enough to deal with a large size wound, and to have Quick Clot with you I think is very important. Couple last little details on this outside flap. So here you'll see a whistle. Now this is the Tops whistle, which is really one of the best ones I have. I have a number of different whistles, but this Tops whistle is pretty nice. It's nice and flat, doesn't take up too much space, and that's the key for me. Things that fit in these packs efficiently, and that's why I've selected some of the gear that I have. The fact of the matter is, at the end of it all, it's the right size, the right shape. It fits efficiently. It's nice and dense, fills this out perfectly, and gives me a good array of materials while being completely efficient. And finally down here, some dental floss, which floss for me is really important. I enjoy my teeth feeling clean. Now with my current diet, I do end up with a lot of stuff in my teeth. So to have the ability to get clean is definitely nice. Now, dental floss is very tough as well. So it could almost, if you had to in a pinch, it could double as some cordage. I would probably try not to do that and bring additional cordage in another way, but in a pinch, you certainly could do that. So you'll see on the top here some adhesive tape. So basically like medical adhesive tape. Now I have used this little keeper to hold this in place. That to me was a good spot to keep this, so it's really not going to fall out and not get damaged or lost. So that's really the purpose for why I use the keeper, just to kind of loop it through there, keep it in the pack. But as I mentioned, I did bring some soap to wash my dishes. What about a little sponge? So here you'll see a little sponge that I cut down to size. Nice little efficient piece. It's all it needs to be. So this can definitely help me keep my gear clean and nice, so when it goes back in my pack, I'm not trashing all the rest of my gear. And a good quality lighter. So here you'll see this beautiful weatherproof and resistant lighter from Therm. This is excellent. Now for me, this is a perfect little lighter where it's weather resistant, but a butane torch. So a good quality torch is definitely key. Now the good thing about this, where it's gasketed, is it does keep the butane in the actual lighter. So the butane is there when you need it. That's the problem with some of these other lighters. The fact is, the actual fuel can leak out of them. So when you finally need them, you have no fuel. But in this case, where it is gasketed, I should not have that problem. Now continuing on with some of my fire concepts, here you will see that I have a fire steel. Now I basically picked this fire rod simply because of the size and shape and the fact that it fits so perfectly in the pack. Could I have picked another one? Yeah, fine. But bottom line is, this is the one that fit perfectly, so that's what I chose. And a little bit odd, but I thought this would be a nice addition. A good quality and healthy piece of fat wood. Again, fitting nicely in this pack. As I pull it out here, this is a good saturated and just tasty piece of fat wood. As you look at it here, you'll see the resin just glistening. So this is a nice little opportunity if you needed it to get some good quality tinder. Imagine showing up to a campsite and everything is totally soaked. You would probably be thrilled to have this in your fire kit.